Today's video is all about Shadow, a Sonic native concentrated liquidity exchange, the ultimate trading hub on Sonic. Guys, today we're going to be doing a deep dive. We're going to be looking into some of the fundamentals. We're going to be talking about the team, the tokenomics, the utility, and the overall value proposition, trying to figure out whether this project has what it takes to make it to our portfolio. So you know what? Let's talk about the news, let's analyze the charts, and let's strategize to capitalize. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and let's get right into it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. On the channel, we talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the altcoins, looking for opportunity. Whether we go up or down, bearish or bullish, it doesn't matter. But the question is Shadow the opportunity? Guys, we're doing a deep dive. We're going to look into some of the fundamentals here. We're going to be looking at, of course, the team, the tokenomics, and all that good stuff. But more importantly, what we want to do is make sure that we take a retail perspective. We want to make sure that the retail investor, when they come in and want to do a bit of research here on Shadow, that we have everything that is needed to get fundamentally bullish. So we'll be using the website as our main platform. We'll be looking at some of the documentation, some of the socials, to get an idea of what Shadow is all about. All right, guys, so let's begin. Let's see what's going on here. Shadow, first landing page, looking pretty good. I kind of like it. Nice and clean. Shadow, if you guys know anything about what Sonic is all about, Sonic is the L1 out there that a lot of people are buzzing about, the upgrade to Phantom. And of course, an L1 requires a DEX. It requires, you know, the DeFi play. And the DeFi play, the DEX, there's a lot of DEXs already, or there are a few DEXs on Phantom, or, you know, transferring over to Sonic as well. But Shadow is designed specifically for Sonic. You know, Shadow obviously being part of the you know, the Sonic duo, if you're into video games and all that kind of stuff. But you get what I mean. You know, their overall marketing, it does make sense. Now, ultimately, it's a tailored DEX for Sonic, and we know that Sonic's focus is speed, and if Shadow could keep up with the Sonic speed, then it's a match made in heaven. This is why a lot of people are very focused right now on Shadow as being the lead DEX for Sonic. Okay, just keep it in mind, it's one of the DEXs out there. Whether you think this one is better or not, it's up to you, but we're going to get through some of these fundamentals right now. Okay, let's scrape through the landing page here to see what they got to offer. We have total value locked, $74 million. Okay, monthly volume. I would say that the volume is absolutely crazy. Lots of good volume here on Sonic. His trading volume is insane in the last little while. So I really do appreciate that. You know, some of the stats on some of the aggregators out there showing that, you know, Shadow's volume is incredible. So I appreciate that. Weekly incentives. So, you know, the incentivization of being part of the network and earning and that kind of stuff, and we'll talk about all of that and how rewards are being distributed when we talk about tokenomics. And the rebase, total rebase, $13.4 million. Guys, if you want to know more on how, you know, DEXs really operate as far as keeping their pegs and keeping their liquidity intact, what you have to really do is understand how DeFi works. Now, this deep dive is not going to get into the technicals. We're not going to get into a tech perspective. We're here to do a deep dive on a crypto project, right? The reality is what we're really focusing is on the utility of a token. What is the purpose of Shadow, and is Shadow as a token a valuable asset class or asset to buy into? And this is what's so important. Obviously, it stems from the tech, it stems from all of that, but we can't get too deep here because we're here for investing in crypto. We're going to try our best to get a full broad picture, as deep as we can go, in all the aspects of what makes a token and a crypto project viable. So trade anything on the market. This is important because we're talking about Sonic, and Sonic being EVM is very important because it attracts a lot of liquidity across many chains, which is important. And we can see trading Bitcoin. Now, is it going to be native Bitcoin? Is it going to be wrapped Bitcoin? This is something that, you know, I really have to, you know, look into. I don't think this is, you know, it needs a little bit more detail with regards to how Bitcoin gets involved on this EVM chain. Okay, that's super important. We know that other chains are currently looking to attract the native native Bitcoin to their chain. So I'm curious of how Shadow and Sonic plan to adhere to that. In this case, the trading of Bitcoin, if it's native or not. Discover Shadow's key features and innovations. Okay, this is probably more important, right? The pool is optimized with dynamic fees, so concentrated liquidity, maximize returns by targeting the active liquidity range, fine-tune price ranges. Okay, this is probably the most important thing. Earn fees, vote incentives, and rebates from user and emission exits, all in one powerful system. So their algorithm, let's say their mechanism on how to make this thing work, obviously is a very technical thing, and it has a lot to do with DeFi and how DeFi works. Now, again, I'm not going to get into that much detail here, but we'll definitely talk a bit about it. Smart fees architecture fees algorithmically algorithmically adjust to match market activity, which customizable fees splits for each gauge and creator fees. So there's a lot to be said here, and I like the documentation because it kind of addresses some of this. Only available on Sonic Network. Okay, good stuff. Getting started easy. You can read the docs, which we'll do in a second. So very basic, very clean. I like the website. Very cool here. We got the docs. We got X if you want to go check out their profile, and their Discord. They do not have a Telegram as far as I can see. Their Discord is quite interesting. There are some helpful individuals on there ready to ask questions. I think it's really good. I think the Discord community is helpful, and that's all we really need. Maybe a little bit more engagement as far as welcoming new people, asking questions might be good, but they're ready to adhere to what a lot of people are asking, and so on, which is all we really want. Okay, so let's look at some of the documentation. We'll talk about the socials a little bit more in a second. Just stay tuned towards the end, guys. I'm going to give you the summary. I'm going to give you that infographic, and I'm also going to make that infographic available on the socials as well for a quick summary. So we're going to get into a bit of detail here. And as you can see, we do have let's go back to the home. Let's go straight to the home. You got, again, those four main categories here. You got what is 3.3 and, tokenomics. This is important. We'll talk about it in a second. And there's a little bit more here. Build for Sonic. So it's built strategically just for Sonic. It's not like it was built on Phantom and then it's migrating or being adjusted to fit for Sonic. This is important. It's directly built for Sonic. So that's good. And this is that. So what I want to really do is focus on, okay, let's go through these categories here. Partners, decent amount of partners. I can see that for its age and for what it's got going on. We're going to talk about a little bit of them because the majority of them are, helping for, the liquidity and so on, so which is good. Like I like some of these, but they're very small. We have Compound, and I'm not too sure what their engagement is with Compound or even Kyber Network. These are two quiet projects that haven't been doing much in the last little while. And then we have Vacuna Finance, which is doing pretty good. A lot of people buzzing about it in the last little bit. So it's good within the realm of their size. I think that there's a lot happening here, and there's a couple here that I'm really interested in, and the fact that they have those partnerships or relationships are good. I would go as far as saying, these are relationships until they're proven as proper strategic partnerships. And a lot of times we get a lot of logos that don't really fit in. But again, we'll talk about more of the details with regards to some of these. And then this is where we get a little bit more technical, because this is where things kind of like, a lot of DeFi play on this origins of V33. Now, again, Andre being the godfather of DeFi is definitely, the mindset that you need to follow, and you need to kind of like really understand that he is focusing on DeFi for right now for Sonic. That's the main, and it should be for all L1s, when they come out, when they're coming out hot, they need to make sure DeFi is totally intact. And a lot of us are bullish on Andre and the fact that he's tailoring Sonic to be a perfect L1 to house projects like Shadow. Act in the best interest of other exchanges, will not be perfect. Okay, let's move on. Rebase is the rebasing, different epochs, and here we can say the core element of V33 model was the rebasing for locked positions. And this is something that's so important with Shadow, is that it's very dynamic. Okay, so being a dynamic scenario means that literally the tokens are not locked up. You are able to basically access your tokens at any time that you feel, which is good. You know, upon exit, you are going to pay a little bit of a fee, or a slap on the wrist. But the reality is, it's pretty good at the end of the day, being able to access your liquidity wherever you like. That was one of the drawbacks even for liquid staking. Okay, so I'm kind of jumping ahead here. So holders to Shadow allows holders to exit early, sacrificing their voting power. The fortified underlying tokens are streamed to existing stakers, and so on and so forth. Okay, stakers are able to capture emissions created by the protocol with emission exit. So if someone decides to exit early, they will pay a little bit of a fee, and that's a part of the way they earn. Ultimately, how does some of this value get back into the shadow liquidity? That's basically what how do they earn? Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about too as well, which is quite interesting. It's a very simple thing. And you can see they do a great job expressing how they improve, or how they go upon this 33 type of thing. Shadow is where 33 shines. It does. It is removing your 4-year lock. That's the main bread and butter. The 4-year lock is removed and incorporating exit mechanisms rather than relying on traditional token unlocks or insider rewards and so on and so forth. So this is something that is quite unique. There's not many dexes that offer this type of scenario, especially with having X shadow for liquidity. So you're going to have a liquid token that you're going to lock up your shadow tokens and basically receive X shadow tokens that you're going to be able to use within the ecosystem, or for various tasks, let's say earning passively, and obviously voting. And we'll talk about whether this is a DAO or just some sort of governance in a second. So this is the emission exits. Claim as shadow if you want your shadow back. Instantly exit X shadow rewards to shadow, and X shadow stakers are able to capture emissions created by the protocol. And this is the e-liquid claims emissions 2x APR, and so on. Again, if you want to know more about how this works, you're going to have to get into the technicals behind how all of this, the provisions, the DEX limitations, and so on work here for this project. Guys, I'm not going to get into too much detail here because I think it goes beyond the scope, but still, you can see that there's a happy balance right here for Shadow, where you have the token emissions, the LP, which is the liquidity, and the trader fees, which ultimately, it balance out very, very well within the 3-3 model. Okay, so this is important. And again, more information here. Again, voting, that's one of your incentives and so on. So X Shadow, what is it? This is really important because when you basically think of Shadow, you think of it as a token. But if you're going to stake it up and you want to get your voting rights, or your basically voting rights for whatever purposes that they have, ultimately you want some liquidity, and this is what you will be receiving: X Shadow tokens. So X Shadow is a token developed by the Shadow team to address the sustainability challenge associated with the earlier V33 models. X Shadow combines the best of vote escrow models with the flexibility of traditional escrow incentive systems. So the exit, and then there's the vesting, which we know what it is: vote incentives, active staking, liquid staking, which is where the tokens themselves, the X Shadow tokens, come into play also. And you can see there's a lot of benefits, or you're given a lot of features just by holding and staking, or locking up, whatever you want to call it, Shadow tokens, right? They get converted into X Shadow, and then from there you can basically get active in many aspects. Again, the voting, the earning, and the receiving 100% of protocol fees and voting incentives. Now, the voting incentive is quite interesting because it incentivizes people to vote and get active within governance. So if you vote and you participate, some of those voting fees, or those fees associated to the protocol, will be issued as rewards, which is interesting because that means that you're getting actually rewarded for being an active participant in the governance. And this is what they want. They don't want just people holding and just sitting back and not getting active and involved in the ecosystem or in the project itself. They want people to place votes and and tell them what they think. So that feedback is key, and I appreciate that as far as, you know, getting having an incentive to get token holders involved. So the token itself, this is where things start to get interesting. Of course, it's a one-to-one representation of shadow. So you have a shadow and you have your X shadow. It's almost like a dual token system, but X shadow liquidity basically is controlled by the smart contract, and we'll see how much liquidity is reserved for X shadow in a second when we go on chain. Only holders of X shadow have voting rights on shadow. This is important. You're gonna you know, lock up your shadows for voting rights, but you're gonna be receiving X shadow tokens as that proof of liquidity, essentially. While X shadow itself is non-transferable, it provides users with different exit options, instant or vesting, and it gives you options. It allows you to be active still, and that's why liquid staking is very promising, is because not only do you lock up and you can earn passively, but you can still become very active within the ecosystem. How is X shadow obtained? You basically convert it, and that's about it. Shadow, it can be freely converted into X shadow at any time. The process is instant and it's one-to-one. How to exit? So what's important is that an immediate conversion incurs a 50% penalty, offering a 1 to 0.1 ratio. So this is one of the ways the ecosystem works, in such that it will earn rewards or earn based on this penalty. Partial vesting periods offer a proportional ratio. 30 months equals okay. So there's a certain ratio based on proportion of time. Opting for a full 6-month vesting period results in a 1-to-1 ratio, eliminating any penalty. So you have the option to be liquid at any time, but your conversion, your penalty will be this, and that ratio won't be you know, the best in that case. So instant means forfeiting 50% of the underlying shadow, which is not something that you want to do. So there is a penalty. So although it is liquid at any time, there is a penalty, and it's an extreme penalty. It's 50%. That's a lot, guys. So minimum vesting length, cancellation period. Okay, maximum vesting length is 100%, 180 days, and that's, you know, the maximum that you're going to be vesting. So can be canceled only during the initial 14 days vesting period, is returned to the user upon cancellation of vesting. So you have 14 days of leeway, let's say, and the maximum of 100 days vesting, and receives all their underlying shadow tokens one-to-one basis. Okay, so that's the maximum. And then this is another incentive. So you get this incentive. Okay, so there's that, voting incentives and so on. And here you have the voting is earning 100% of the protocol fees and vote incentive. So when you're voting for liquidity and engages, which we'll talk about in a second, you receive a proportionate share of the fees. So you're earning basically the fees, you're earning fees, part of the fees, to get involved and vote, which you're getting paid to vote. Guys, think about it. It's interesting. It incentivizes people to get active. So that's that. I feel like that's self-explanatory. Very interesting there. Voting breakdown, if you want to know more about the mathematics and this and that and so on, feel free to check that out. Active staking, you can stake and have you have X shadow staked, cast votes during each epoch, and that's important because ultimately this is one of the value propositions of shadow, is to be able to claim your X shadows, and then with your X shadows you are able to get involved in active staking and all of this. And liquid staking, of course, shadow was designed to eliminate friction from V3 model, and managing voting positions is one of the biggest sources of this friction. The liquid staked version of X shadow simplifies this process of automating voting and rewarding claims without disrupting X shadow's core mechanism. Again, more of a technical thing here, guys. I'm going to do my best to kind of get through this, and so you can see the technical aspects. But again, if you want to deep dive more further into the tech, feel free to do that. PvP rebase, again, 100% of the shadow tokens that are forfeited prior to fully vesting, so exiting early, are used to rebase. Okay, so again, more technical knowledge about rebasing. So interesting stuff. You got to admit, there's a little bit of a learning curve of understanding the mechanisms behind DeFi here. Okay, and I tried my best to kind of like extract what was important here. The summary here is that X shadow ultimately is a token that can be obtained by, you know, trading regular shadow tokens, and you will receive X shadows. X shadows have options. You have things that can be done with them. And as you can see, this is the list of what can be done with those X shadows. And instead of having your shadows just locked up and not being able to do anything with them, you receive liquidity via X shadow so that you can get active and still be able to and participate in voting and earning and staking and all this kind of stuff, which also gives you options to earn and be a lot more liquid. And this is why we call it liquid staking. Okay, so this is important. Okay, this is that concentrated liquidity. I'm gonna do my best to get into tokenomics. Let's do that. Let's talk about tokenomics for a second. One thing that what the team doesn't really make clear is that a certain portion of the tokens are already in emissions. They're already out there. Okay, which is important, because if you think about it, at the current moment, you're going to look at this and you're going to see the distribution. There are, I think, 10 million, guys. Let's quickly go look. Okay, so we have circulating supply, total value locked, hold on, market cap. Okay, good. Max supply is 10 million tokens. Okay, that's that. Now we can see the total supply is at about 3 million, 3.3 million. So that equates to about 30% of the circulating supply is already in emission. Okay, now what you have to understand is that this portion right here only is counting the 30%. This 25, this 25, and this 10, this whole pie here represents that 30% that is already in distribution. The remaining 70, okay, is going to be emitted via rewards. Okay, and that's not very clear here. So I'm going to make sure we clarify that. This right here represents the initial 30% of the tokens that were emitted or released or distributed at TGE when it first started, and they are currently in a vesting schedule, which we're going to talk about a second, but it's only represents 30%. The rest of the 70 will get emitted as the project, as Shadow earns rewards for contributors. Okay, so that's important. Now, what I do see here is this. Now, I think this pie chart is great, but I think we might as well just go look at this chart because you can see it all nicely. The airdrop 10%. Okay, and partners 10%, contributors, early contributors 25%, pre-sale 25%. This right here is I forget what it stands for, but the polls, basically early investors 10%, reserves 15%, community incentives. Again, this is great to help out community getting involved, but it's almost like rewards in itself. The most important thing here is that this is an investing schedule, okay? And all this, if you add it all up, is 100% of the 30% of the tokens that were emitted at TGE. Okay, so I know that this looks very centralized. If you look at it, these are all early investors. These are all, very. These are categories of which can cause a bit of an issue, especially when tokens get emitted and unlocked through the vesting schedule, because they're talking about partners and early contributors and pre-sale. These are people that sell and got in early. However, there is an emission, and you can see that they will be emitted very, very slowly. Okay, and we'll talk about the emissions in a second, but just remember, 70%, this is only represents 30, 70% is almost, let's consider it fair distribution, okay, through rewards and active participation on the network, okay? Important stuff there. Very important to identify, because I think this is a perfect recipe. You guys know that I talk about a lot, the difference between fair launch and having VCs involved, okay? This is equivalent to having like a little bit of VC involvement, because there's a lot of early investors and all of this kind of stuff that getting in to raise liquidity earlier on in the stage of the project, which is necessary, guys. They need runway, they need liquidity, they need marketing dollars. Without this stuff, fair launch projects have an issue because they don't have capital. They don't have working capital to do anything, and that's a problem. And that's why a lot of fair launch projects don't lift off, because they don't have what the liquidity needed to get even listed on exchanges. This is the issue. Okay, so this is a fair deal. This is on a vesting schedule, 30%. The rest of the 70 is going to be released via rewards. And you can see the clear initial supply, which is the 3 million that I mentioned, and the 10 million max supply, which again, 10 million is going to eventually reach there. And you can see eventually it will get there. Eventually we'll get to the 10 million. Right now we are 50 epochs is approximately 1 year, if I'm not mistaken. 1 year's 50 epochs, which is good. Every year we'll definitely see a little bit more. And as we reach the 10 million, very close to the 10 million, eventually this will reach the max supply supply will be a gradual growth after that, right? So you're looking at some time, about 10 years before that actually reaches the 500 bucks, which is about approximately 5 million tokens emitted. So it's going to take a long time, and we're talking about emissions as far as the emissions of the vesting as well, because if you think about it, it's going to be a slow release after this point right here, about 200 epochs is going to be very slow emissions up until the 10-year, and that's because the majority of the unlocks and the majority of the tokens that are going to get released is based on rewards, nice and slow reward system. So I appreciate all of this. The tokenomics is ideal. This is an ideal balanced way to have enough liquidity available and at the same time reward active participants, to the point that if you watch the founder's video, his name is 24, he goes by 24. If you watch his video, his main objective is to make participants on this network wealthy, because they're the ones that are eventually gonna basically drive Shadow. And it's important because if there's an incentive to participate, there's an incentive to drive this project to higher levels. He wants active participation, and the only way to do that is incentivizing them via making them wealthy, which makes sense, right? So this is good stuff. I appreciate it. So read through it. Elastic emissions. There's going to be a little bit of flexibility as far as emissions, because of course rewards will be dependent on activity, and it might change over time. So depending on protocol revenue and the revenue, obviously activity equals activity. To maintain a sustainable inflation, 100% of all the emission goes go to gauges. These are no team allocation or other distributions, ensuring fully decentralized emissions. This is basically what they want to do. Emissions can be modified up to 25% per epoch, and of course, governance. All of this matters because there is a level of governance here. Again, total supply reaching the 10 million max supply. Eventually they're going to have some sort of emission a deflationary system to keep it below, or is it it's going to reach its max supply slow and steadily type of thing, and it's going to take a long time for that to happen. Okay, so look, this is great. I like what it has and what its mechanism. I can tell the team took a lot of time to think about how it's going to differentiate itself from other dexes and how to make active participants or incentivize them to get active, which I appreciate. Okay, so that's pretty much it, guys. You can look at some of the security audits. They're audited. They got a lot here. Contract addresses, complete transparency on a lot of this, which is important, because where are all the tokens being held, especially in a new project? You want to see all of that. I appreciate all of this transparency. Disclaimer, of course, all of that, guys. None of this is financial advice, and they say the same thing. None of it is financial advice, but at the end of the day, you're trying to find a project that's going to treat you the best, and I think that Shadow is an interesting play as far as tokenomics. They're doing the right thing. Okay, so let's move on. That's that. Now, if we move on to start looking at what else do we got here, that's tokenomics. We talked about that. Now, if you want to actively participate, one of the ways that you can use your tokens, your liquidity tokens, liquid tokens, is to basically participate in voting on which pairs should be, introduced into the pools. As you can see, there's many right now. We have Sonic USDC, Sonic Wrapped ETH, and we have a lot of wrapped tokens, right? And you can see oil and so many other native tokens to Sonic right now. It's Snake, G Snake, and so on. So you can vote, come in here and vote. You can see how many votes there are, and voting rewards and next epoch emissions. A lot of these rewards a portion of them will be redistributed as rewards to token holders, as we mentioned. So there's part of the incentive there, and it's good stuff, guys. So one of the thing is this of active DAO? That's one of the things that kind of like makes me question, is it a DAO? It's not really. You have governance, right? Certain characteristics, but what other aspects can be voted on, and is there going to be a future for further active participation as far as a decentralized autonomous organization? Is this going to be maybe something that could be implemented in the future? Of course it can. Is it something that's necessary, particularly how rewards will be used, maybe for marketing purposes or hiring different individuals for particular roles within the team and so on and so forth? Right now, the reality is the team is not completely fully doxed. It's like a semi-dox, not even. Like you can go online and you can see that 24 is there visually. You can see who he is as far as a person goes, and hear him speak and see his face and so on and so forth. But you don't really know who 24 is, and this is one of the things. If you look at, their the socials, this is the persona that you get. This is all you really get is 24 and his exchange that he created with his team, which is great, no doubt. And he's a smart individual. If you have the time, go check out that. There's an interview there out there with Shadow Exchange and 24, where he speaks about for a couple hours about Shadow and how it competes and its value propositions and all of that. He does a much better job from the technical side of things than I do. Obviously, I'm here to give you a full broad perspective of what the Shadow token is, and ultimately digging deeper on as a crypto project rather than a tech project, right? So right now we can see that it would be beneficial to have a fully doxed team, but at least he shows face and he does his thing to explain. Now, from a marketing perspective, just real quick, it is very young. We only 20,000 followers. That's the reality, which is good. I don't appreciate the marketing of Chill Guy here. I would say stay away. It's already a Shadow. If you know what Sonic and Shadow, the relationship based on the video game, it sounds a little bit maybe even the word, even Sonic as a name, I'm not crazy about, but this is me being picky. But this being associated to a meme, I wouldn't do it. That's something that I would get away from that persona, get away from that type of marketing. That's my opinion, of course. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Should these, especially DeFi, start looking like use meme coin marketing? That's the problem. I don't think that they should, personally speaking. Okay, so that's that. And they're active. I would say I did a little bit of metrics, investigation on their X account. They are ramping up significantly as far as the amount of likes that they've been getting in 2025. Significant ramp up. Okay, so we are seeing a lot of active contributing and social engagement on their X account, which is great. At the beginning, it wasn't that active, but then slow and steadily, they're getting very active, which for me is really good. So you're getting an average of about 100 to 150 likes per post. You can see this one got 200, and you can see they talk, and some of them not as much. And you can see because there's a bit of repetition, maybe the algo kind of, is not liking that, but you can see 100, 150. And for their the amount of followers that they have, that's not bad. Okay, it's not bad at all. Okay, so they're very active. They're getting a lot of engagement for 20,000 followers, which is good. I appreciate that. Okay, so that's that. Now, to wrap this up, guys, usually there's a lot to say. But to wrap this up, it's like your real value proposition here, your real mindset should be, what kind of value is this going to bring for Sonic? And what kind of value is Sonic going to bring for Shadow? Because ultimately, an L1 needs a DEX. And a DEX ultimately, needs action. It needs market participation. It needs ecosystem growth. Now, I'm going to say this. We know that the ecosystem, the Shadow ecosystem, the Sonic ecosystem is growing slowly. Okay? It's not that big. We got to be real about it, guys. You guys know that I like Sonic, and I'm full-on bullish on Shadow and Sonic. The problem is that we got to say how it is. The ecosystem needs to grow. And right now, they're focusing on DeFi. There is some gaming projects. There's some AI projects. But there are very, very, very young. Okay, so just keep this in mind. Now, I just want to quickly address this. If you go on chain and you look at the Sonic scan, you will see that there is the provisions for X Shadow tokens locked up, 91% locked up here into a contract. Okay, if you go on here and you're afraid of that, this is what's gonna basically happen. You're gonna receive when you swap your Shadow tokens for X Shadows. Okay, so keep that in mind. Shadow team multi-sig. If you want to get access to liquidity. The team wants to get access. There's a multi-signature scenario where multiple signatures need to sign the contract or sign the transaction in order for it to happen, which is good. And then the rest of this is quite clean and clear. As you can see, this is a new project, guys. Expect this. It might look scary, obviously, but this is the way things work. Okay, guys, when you have new projects and you're waiting for a lot of the tokens to be emitted slowly, whether they be rewards or not, it doesn't matter. They're eventually going to get emitted. Just to anticipate and understand the tokenomics. Now, as far as social goes, to continue that aspect. They do have a Medium account that doesn't have much engagement or much attention. It would be nice to see a little bit more action here, especially that they have one. To have a media page that's not active or being cared for is not a good look. It's better not even to have it if they're not gonna take care of it, right? It just doesn't look committed. Okay, so that's that, guys. Not bad. I would say that there's a lot here. Now, I just want to quickly throw out here, guys, it is a new project. It is a new project with an up-and-coming L1 that just got a huge revamp, technology-wise, of course, and marketing. So we're waiting for it to pick up a bit of steam. All right, guys, as usual, I do release an infographic for you guys, and I'm going to release this as a summary on the socials, and we'll have a quick chat about what I see here. Obviously, the summary here is going to be more important than usual. Okay, the summary basically it enables users to stake shadow tokens and earn rewards and participate in governance without requiring long-term locks. That is the main idea here. Okay, and it's not the only. I'm going to be clear about that, but it is the main. And just understand that we're talking about Sonic as a very buzzed about L1, and the platform incorporates protocol-owned liquidity, which is what the POL stands for, and maintain deep liquidity as sustainable emissions. With focus on DeFi innovation and decentralized shadow aims to provide an efficient and user-friendly trading experience. This is the main value proposition. Okay, so important stuff and interesting stuff for sure. So I'm going to quickly say, okay, the ecosystem, unfortunately, it doesn't really rely on ecosystem. It's a DEX. It's part of an ecosystem. Its own ecosystem, it kind of lies there because it's an exchange, right? It's a decentralized exchange, and it offers a lot of different features, no doubt, within its own platform. But in an ecosystem, it wouldn't be fair to judge a shadow from an ecosystem perspective, but it would be fair to say that Shadow is part of an ecosystem that Sonic is providing, and Sonic is an L1 that is up and coming, and its ecosystem is growing. Sonic's ecosystem grows, so does the use case for Shadow, because people are going to want to trade those tokens that on the Sonic ecosystem on a DEX, and that's where Shadow comes in. And there's a lot of DeFi coming in right now, and AI and GameFi on Sonic. So eventually we're going to see those projects create tokens, and those tokens are going to be tradable on Shadow. And this is where Shadow and Sonic kind of work together. And this relationship exists on all the platforms, on all L1s, where the DEX is where all the action's at. And if Shadow can attract all the action, it's going to make tons of rewards via fees. And those fees and those rewards get redistributed to active participants. And this is where we start to see that cycle grow. Okay, so very important. Utility, lots of utility here, tons of it. Okay, so it's maxed out. I would say as a token holder, you're going to get everything you need or everything you can get out of a DEX right here. Rewards, liquid staking, governance, protocol owned liquidity for the DEX. That's what you're providing. You're helping the DEX provide liquidity, which is also important. And one thing that I have to say, guys, there's no roadmap, unfortunately. Unfortunately, no roadmap. And, you know, as you guys know, I've done over 90 deep dives in the last couple of years. Every week I do release a deep dive. And out of all the 90, I would say maybe 5 projects have it that doesn't have a roadmap. So whether my expectation is false or not, let me know what you think. But at least give us an idea of what we're working on quarterly. You know, what is the next phases quarterly? So we know where we're at, why we're allocating capital now. You know, I know it requires commitment from a team to say, look, by the end of this quarter, I'm going to have XYZ completed, but at least gives us an idea of where we're putting our resources, not only, you know, capital, but human capital. Like what are we working towards, and what as a community can I do to help you work towards that goal, whether it be actively participating on socials or whatever the case is. What are we fighting towards? And that is what a roadmap should be. It doesn't have to be down to the days and to the minutes, like a lot of devs, guys, because I know, you know, about the dev communities. I'm part of the dev community. I understand that that ultimately, you know, putting a date is very difficult, because if you don't meet that deadline, the blowback is massive. But at least some sort of accountability, or at least some sort of trajectory, would be great here for a roadmap. Okay, so that's that. The team semi-doxed, we would say. Okay, I could say, you know, you can check out his X profile. Okay, and you got $24. That's what he goes by. He's and I'm just going to say this. That's all you really know. That's all I was able to really gather from the team is the founder, the main creator. And from what I've heard him speak about, he seems very intelligent, very capable, very everything that you would want. But again, unfortunately, there's no more detail. So how can I get bullish on a person that I'm able to only know based on a 2-hour conversation? So this is a bit of a discrepancy, because I want to be bullish, but there's not enough info. So what do we do here? Either say, maybe it's not as important and allow the team to put the money where their mouth is, and let's see what they create. That's fine, no doubt. But we cannot negate the fact that there's still no doxed team, completely doxed. I want to know, education, prior experience. I want to know what other talent is on the team. Is there a great marketing guru that maybe is involved? We would want to know that. It would get me more fundamentally bullish. I would buy more tokens. I would feel more comfortable. That's it. And that's the bottom line. Now, we also have to understand that Shadow's part of DeFi, which DeFi in the past has always been very, let's say, anonymous, trying to be very quiet and decentralized in that way, to the point that there was never, just recently, DeFi was able to reintroduce rewards because, of course, regulation based on earning as a commodity or being a security. And this is one of the issues, right? So a lot of them just had a DAO and so on and so forth, and that was the case. So the reality is, I think we understand why the team wants to be anonymous, but at the same time, we also understand why we would want more information. Guys, you do your own due diligence. Socials, not bad. No Telegram. 20,000 followers with increasing engagement on posts. I can clearly see that. There's no Telegram, but is there a necessity for a Telegram? Okay, this is where I'm a little bit on the fence, because Telegram for me personally is a mess. I don't like Telegram, but personally, that's a personal experience. Again, Discord is a lot better, in which they have a very well designed Discord with mods willing to answer questions. A little bit more activity as far as a team member would be good. Maybe somebody that's willing to answer questions in a more technical way. Maybe a little bit more patience with helping people understand things, because there are questions, especially when there's a little bit of ambiguity, but still a fair experience. Maybe I could have ranked them a little bit higher here, but that's that. Tokenomics, I think tokenomics is great. As I mentioned, it's a healthy balance. 30% locked investing, which that 30% is allocated to early stakeholders. We've talked about that. And those are usually individuals that sell early. But again, it's locked investing and it's only 30%. And they were able to raise liquidity for the team to get things going. We need that. So it's important to have runway, right? So that's good. And the rest of it, which is the grand majority of it, 70% will be emitted via rewards. And for me, that's healthy. That means that, we're going to have less risk of dilution. That would be considered a fair way to emit tokens. So good. They're going to be emitted via trading fees, voting incentives, and exit penalties. That's how rewards will be collected. Okay, so 3 main categories there. I say 10 out of 10. Great stuff there as far as tokenomics for DeFi and a project in general. Relationships, there's a lot, and I would assume that a lot of the relationships that can be obtained could come easily, and again, this is an assumption stemming from the Phantom ecosystem, which is already somewhat established. So I'm hoping to see some relationships happen there. And it doesn't mean, and I know a lot of the times, right now Shadow's really boasting on the fact that they're the first DEX for that is custom for Sonic, and I totally love it. That's great. But we can't negate the fact that there's years of work already established on the Phantom ecosystem that's ready to integrate, that's ready to mingle, and perhaps work together and create a better, stronger ecosystem. Again, could that be a relationship stemming from Phantom? Could that be a benefit? Of course. It could be, because there's already an established foundation there. Okay, so I like that. It's not starting, it's not part of an ecosystem that's starting from complete scratch. That's what I'm saying. What it has, though, is a good relationship with Vicuna Finance, Ring Protocol, and Beats, and they're both, all of them are pretty much staking solutions, allowing, providing staking solutions for Shadow. And this is great, because that's one of their value propositions, okay, for earning rewards. Okay, so that's good. It's young. Just keep in mind it's young. And the reality is, what relationships does a DEX really need? Okay, other liquidity or staking solutions and other small contributions. It's not like a gaming project that you can have so many different involvements, you know, whether it be DPIN and this and that, right? So there's a lot could happen in other avenues, but the DEX, as long as the DEX is well built, it doesn't need that many relationships, maybe marketing relationships, who knows? But ultimately, that's that. Exchanges. Okay, it's not listed on a lot of exchanges yet. LBank, MEXC, CoinX, Weeks, CoinW, Bitmart, and BingX. Smaller exchanges. Okay, some mid, let's say, but smaller. MEXC is probably the biggest one here that I can see. Okay, which is BingX is okay, I guess. Look, they're small, and now you can take this as a negative, or you can take this as a positive. A negative would be, where's the liquidity at? If I want to sell, can I sell? Is there enough? Are the order books nice and fat where I can sell when I need to? Or is there opportunity here? The opportunity is getting listed on other exchanges, guys. There's no doubt in my mind that Shadow will definitely get listed on bigger exchanges and more exchanges in time to come. Sonic is going to make a move. Like, based on what it's positioned, Sonic is eventually going to do well with the other L1s, right? Because even if you take it at face value for Phantom as an upgrade to Phantom, it's bound to do that. And if it does do that, what do you think Shadow's going to do? What do you think the entire Sonic ecosystem is going to do? And if the Sonic ecosystem does well, as I mentioned before, Shadow's going to have more opportunity to raise capital, or raise rewards, or basically earning capabilities, based on the fact that there's going to be a lot more projects and tokens being built on Sonic. And this is important, guys. So I feel like this is all intertwined, and we have to understand that eventually exchanges are going to want to list Shadow. And I anticipate a lot more exchange listings in the near future. Okay, just keep in mind there's a bit of volatility in the market, so some of these metrics are a little bit off. I was seeing tons of trading volume in the last little while, guys. I don't know if it cooled on since then, but I was actually in shock to see a good amount of trading volume, circulating supply. So it first started at TGE with 3 million. Now it's at about 305,000 already in distribution or emissions based on rewards, which is great. It will reach max at 10 million, and we're doing okay. As far as understanding that the fully diluted market cap versus the current market cap, we know that there's going to be a spread there, and that ultimately we need to have tokens be emitted. And it's going to take time, guys. So future evaluate fully diluted. Look, I think that even this at $254 million market cap, that's still small. As a fully diluted, that's undervalued for a DEX, in my opinion. Okay, so it's not based on Shadow and Sonic or anything like that. That's the reality, guys. That's still a small amount. That's not big. Okay, so let's move on. Now, just to give you a quick update on my verdict here. What do I see? What do I think? I think that ultimately we have a scenario where Sonic is the main objective, because really that's where this DEX is going to be. It's going to be offering services for the Sonic L1, and as I mentioned, Sonic will do well, it will grow, and so will the use case for a DEX, and which in this case Shadow. Liquid staking, it offers that, EVM compatible, which is great. Easy to attract different projects that are on the Ethereum virtual machine, which is good. And just to throw that out there, some information, if you're looking at the metrics, 50 epochs is equal to 1 year. So you can kind of measure yourself out a little bit there. Initial supply, just to reiterate and have it here in writing, 3 million tokens. That's how it started. And after that, everything else is going to be, emitted via rewards. Founder has an interview on YouTube that I would highly suggest you watch if you're bullish and if you're interested. Lots of good tech talk, a lot of real talk about politics and economics and how things are in the crypto space are leaning towards, growth and so on. It's not just about Shadow, which I do appreciate, because ultimately a broad-minded picture is what's going to be useful here, especially where we are currently into this market. No long-term lockups, and this is one of the things that separate Shadow from other DeFi plays, and because really the keeping everybody liquid is important, and obviously the lockups, there is some details there that you have to know as far as being punished for early exit and so on. Fresh projects looking to be the leader on a hot updated chain, which is Sonic. This is something that we really have to understand. It is small, but it's trying to make a big move in a big projection, which is Sonic. Okay, this is where it is. Now, I was very, very reluctant on making this comparison, but I said, you know what, why not? The reality is Radium. Radium is a DEX. Does it offer the same values that Shadow does? No. It is a DEX that's on Solana. A huge L1, massively successful in the last little while. Obviously, we know what's been happening. I'm not going to get into the details behind Solana, but the reality is, Radium is still one of the leading DEXs for Solana, and it is the leading DEX for Solana. Not an aggregator, just a plain DEX. And ultimately, if Shadow can replicate what Ray is for Solana, and Shadow could be the Ray for Sonic, it definitely is gonna catch up and do very well, 20x easily. Okay, now I was like, okay, maybe I should compare it to Uniswap. Guys, can we say that Sonic is going to catch up to Ethereum? That's the hard part, right? Could Sonic actually flip Ethereum? Now, we have a lot of theories nowadays about Ethereum. We're not going to get into that. But what I'm trying to do is compare an L1 that Sonic can compete with, and then look at its main DEX and compare Shadow with that DEX. And if you get into a modest one, which in this case, again, would be Solana, I can see an easy 20x, which would put the Shadow price at about 1.5K. So let's pause here for a second. Now, this is a psychological thing. There's no truth or validity into what I'm going to say here right now. It's just psychological. I know that retail investors or retail participants do not like expensive tokens. Now, is this going to be a problem? And this is a concern of mine. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Is a high price, high ticketed token a negative, especially when there's no truth whatsoever? It's all about market cap. We know this, and I know this as well. But the price tag of a 1.5K could be a negative. The same way a $100,000 Bitcoin, people don't want it because it looks too expensive. And this is the reality. Those numbers, they rather buy, projects that are pennies, fractions of pennies, because, ultimately the upside potential is much higher, neglecting and not understanding that the market cap is what matters. This is what the retail investor, the challenge with the retail investor. Is it going to be a challenge for Shadow? Is this something that needs to be accounted for? Is this something that maybe some rejigging needs to happen via tokenomics? I don't know. But ultimately, I do expect some people to say, I'm not buying $1,000 token, right? I'd rather buy some other one, right? That's out there. That's still Sonic based and still has a value proposition, but it's a small cap and it's a few cents or under a cent. You get what I mean? So technically speaking, this deep dive is about projection, right? It's about thinking about what the future could hold for Shadow, because currently there are things that need to be improved. We can clearly see that, some minor communication details, some minor transparency details about the team and so on. But if Shadow does what it has to do and it gets out of the realm of being a smaller cap, because its market cap is only $21 million, it's very small still, right? Let me just confirm that real quick. Market cap right now is at a $23 million, very, very small. The reality is that it has a lot of upside potential, and the risk is still there, but the reward is massive, right? So what I'm saying here is the potential, the rating should be based on also the reward in the phase that it's in. And I say that this is an 8 out of 10 based on risk to reward, and forming a plan to accumulate at levels where you can reduce risk is also very viable. All right, guys. So I know you're here to talk about charts as well. So let's begin. Let's see what's going on with the Shadow chart, because ultimately the Shadow chart might give us a good entry very soon. We do see a nice V recovery right into this level, guys. You know that I do a lot of trade analysis every single day on YouTube, and join the Discord, guys. I always give you updates along the way, and it's free. The Discord is free. But you can see that up until now, we've been making lower lows and lower highs. The interesting part about all of this, let me just reuse some of these lines because they're no longer necessary. The interesting part of all of this is this zone right here, because given that there is a bit of liquidity that can be hunted on these tops, you can see that we're currently testing this level as resistance, which is not good, right? Not good at all. It's a double top, and getting rejected over here is not good look. However, we're still fine, and the reason being is the proper confirmation is a higher low. And that's really what we want to see. We want to see sell-off. People are going to de-risk here. Why? Because you're running into resistance. There's people taking profit. You can't expect people that bought down here within this range not to defend their gains. They will. And the reality is that a pullback here based on a temporary sell-off is acceptable. But how deep do we go? Now we can start using Fibonacci, swing low to swing high, and we can start looking at reasonable levels of which to expect this price action to come down. We have the golden pocket, which is right around here, which is at about $66. I like that, which you can see looking left, there's a wick down here that could act as a bottom. Very confluent, very nice. And obviously, if we come down to below 47, guys, there's going to be stop losses here to hunt. The same way there were stop losses here to hunt, there's stop losses here to hunt. And the question is, do we come down to hunt those stop losses? Because as soon as those stop losses get hunted, we're going to be introducing new liquidity into the market and potentially continue in a downtrend. And this is not what we want, because at this current moment, we are trying to develop a change of character into the market structure. Right now, it's still lower lows and lower highs. Despite what is happening right here, we did not break above and close a daily candle at least above this previous high. This is the 4-hour, by the way. The daily is not really the greatest chart, given the fact that this is all you really got, and it does look like it's getting rejected. I think the 4 hours is a better time frame to analyze the data that you have at the current moment, because there's not even that much data. So really, if we get rejected at this level, we get rejected, we come down to the golden pocket, maybe 786, 886 retracement. This is a good level to potentially look for a bottom, and then we get a confirmation low, a higher low. Okay, that's the beginning. That's the beginning of the change of character. We come down for a higher low, wherever it is around this level, we get a higher low. This was the previous low. As soon as we get a pivot point suggesting that we're going back up, guys, this is where we start to look at, potential neckline, where, is this a V recovery? Maybe. And this is a rounded bottom, maybe. And then it's an Adam and Eve, maybe. But what's more important is that we're confirming the change of direction, a change of character, by confirming a higher high, by breaking above this high and holding a daily candle above it and closing and opening daily candles above it. We are confirming that we are no longer making lower lows and lower highs, but in fact, we made a high. Fine, it wasn't a higher high, but we made a higher low, and that we potentially made a higher high. And then guess what, guys? The trend is now your friend to the upside. And for those of you that look for patterns and so on, the reality is that this is how patterns are made. You start looking at Adam and Eve's, W formations, you start looking for inverse head and shoulders, cup and handles, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Patterns don't matter. What matters is market structure. And it just so happens that market structure can sometimes give you those patterns. So I do call them out when I see them, but ultimately it's too early. It's way too early. If we keep on going, if we keep on breaking to the upside right now as we speak, the only thing that you can hope for at the current moment is maybe a bull flag right below resistance, and maybe get into the flag as we get this distribution and anticipate a continuation. That's all you got, and that's fine. So it's either we structure out here for a bull flag, or we retrace to the golden pocket 786 down here, and then we get going. To be honest, I am more inclined to see a bull flag here. Reason being is no real clear liquidity levels other than all the way down here to come get the price coming down below $50. And if that happens, guys, we're confirming another lower low, and the trend is still your friend. And that's going to be very unfortunate for the shadow price. Why? Because it's going to keep on coming down, guys. Okay, and there's room to still come down, even though its market cap is small. Doesn't matter. Look at the evaluation. Its price is still $83. Is it overvalued at the end of the day for it per coin, per token? And ultimately, its market cap might be still overvalued. I don't think so, personally, but the market needs to vote, and that's what market participation is all about. That's what volume is all about. We wait to see what the real market price is, what the market deems fair price, and as of now, we are working on trying to establish a fair price for the shadow. And what I would like to see, as I mentioned, is a confirmation of a change of character, right? We want to see a pivot point structure right into here, and it's primed to happen if we get those certain scenarios. So we're early, and we can see we're rolling over a little bit in the last couple hours. So let's see what if we get a bit of a dip here where we can accumulate. But I'm accumulating, guys. I bought here, I bought here, I bought here. I've been buying all into this range, and I'm okay with that. If we come down below 40, it will hurt. Below 50, it will hurt. I get it, but I am interested in to see what Sonic brings, and then ultimately what Shadow can do as a software solution to provide a DEX experience for all that ecosystem growth on Sonic. That's what we need to be bullish on. All right, guys. So far so good. Shadow's doing good. Hopefully, you know, I was able to add any value to you guys into your analysis on Sonic. If I offered you any value, do the channel a massive favor. Slap the like button. It does really help out with the algorithm. If you want to follow me on the socials, the links are in the description. Better yet, guys, join the Discord. The Discord is where it's at. Lots of good alpha, trade setups, fundamentals, and learning material. The best part is it's absolutely free. Take care, guys. Have a good one. And don't forget, buy the dip.